I said probably 80% of the Navassa's permanent population were descendants of folks that lived on rice plantations.
The slave population was not totally immersed in rice culture, which is very, very closely identified with the Gullah-Geechee.
Navassa, the town of Navassa is along the Cape Fear, the western bank of the Cape Fear River. And there was, in an 1864 map, it showed 7 rice plantations, or what we believe are rice plantations, located within what we now call the Navassa town boundaries.
Gullah-Geechee, they weren't called Gullah-Geechee back then, but they were brought here because of their expertise in rice growing, because they knew they were going to come up near the waters.
And the Cape Fear River would be the eastern limit, and then eastern of the Cape Fear River is what we call Eagles Island, which is a low-lying area that's conducive for rice growing. And we know that the plantation's primary money crop at that time was rice, and the West Africans were the primary technicians for growing rice. And so we're almost sure that Navassa has a significant Gullah-Geechee population.
It has to do with who writes history and who considers culture and history important. And as I said previously, I will defy you to find in a history book reference to Gullah-Geechee. Even the North Carolina Encyclopedia of History has no entry for Gullah-Geechee.
I knew that these graves were here ever since I was a kid, right? But what happened was when the landowner, the guy that's, you see the buildings that's growing up around you now, when they decided to buy this land, right, they discovered it at that point, okay? They didn't realize the cemetery was over here.
People today can tell you the exact plantation that their ancestors came from. North Carolina, we had a few plantations, but rice was never the sole moneymaker. Rice was grown here primarily for romantic reasons. If you wanted to make your money, you did it in naval stores or something else.
We made it aware that the cemetery was here, and its significance. When I did my book back in 1993, it's documented in the book that was produced in 1993 that the cemetery was here and where the folks came from. These folks are descendants from the Hall Plantation. And when the Hall Plantation was there, this was the burial ground for all the Hall people, okay? The folks that you see over here that's got tombstones, and some of these tombstones date back to the middle 1800s, from the early 1800s to the middle 1800s. Most of them are definitely pre-Civil War. The dogs came out based on our request because there were so many depressions and whatever else out here, and we were sure that there were a lot more. Well, we know from some of the elders in the neighborhood about the amount of folks that was buried out here. We knew that the 8 or 10 tombstones out here wasn't a representative sample, and so we had the dogs to come out from the Brumsey Search and Rescue, and they have discovered some additional areas that we almost sure there are some burial sites. This cemetery was what we call Hall Plantation Cemetery, and this cemetery was the burial ground, the primary burial ground of the folks that were on Hall Plantation. Hall Plantation is right where the boat company is now located, and this was their primary burial ground right here. Okay. This guy right here, that's my dad's great-granddaddy.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. He had a daughter who had a daughter who had a daughter.
Was he a free black?
Who had a son who had me. Okay? He was the first black man that I knew of that in 1875 he actually bought 11 acres of land. He actually had 11 acres of land deeded to him that we now know was his homestead.